All right, Rod. So big things are happening right now. We got Askren versus Jake Paul. Jake Paul finally, this dude's been wanting to fight somebody so bad in the MMA world. Finally got what he wanted. How do you think? How do you feel about this?
Man, this is crazy. So when the news broke, I was legitimately surprised. I think Jake Paul, he's been kind of in the MMA like the fighting world, making some headlines. Right, he had a couple different opponents that could have been handpicked for him. He had Dylan Dennis, Conor McGregor, Michael Bisping, Ben Askren, and then little do you know, he finally lands an opponent, and it's Ben Askren. This is interesting, man. If this was an MMA fight, I feel like Jake be in trouble, but I don't know. Ben Askren in boxing, I mean, that's his probably his weakest attribute when it comes to skill set that he does bring to the UFC. And I'm legitimately scared I might get knocked out. And it's not the fact that he's gonna get knocked out, it's the fact that he's gonna get knocked out to like Jake Paul, who's like a YouTube guy. It's an embarrassment for the MMA community if he does. Um it's crazy, man. I'm hoping Ben Askren can come through. I really am. But I think it's great. He's definitely gonna make some good money there. I mean, good for his career. I mean, hopefully, if he wins, but even if he loses, he'll get a nice little payday. So either way, for him, would be a good one. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, same, man. You know what? I'm really shocked, but I didn't even know Jake Paul was that he had beef with Ben Askren. Like, how did this even happen? That's why I'm shocked because I didn't even see this coming. Did I miss
So
something?
here's my no. I don't think he had beef with him. If I think Ben Askren like kind of put his name in the box there when people were Jake Paul's calling people out. He had a little beef with Dylan Dennis. I think he kind of just like started, tugging on his ropes a little bit, getting his name involved, and
Oh,
ended up that it happened. I mean, there's two ways I logically think about this. One, Ben Askren at this moment in time, he's not tied to an organization. He's not fighting for anybody. He's retired. So there's no holdup or third party that's going to hold that back. And two, out of all the people that were names on Jake Paul's list, Ben Askren is the best choice for him. It's a guy that realistically Jake Paul can beat in a boxing fight. So I mean, I think it all just kind of fell perfectly into place for Jake Paul. I think this is what he wanted all along. He wanted to create that traction of getting all these people excited, mentioning his name, and finally land an opponent. And now he lands a legitimate one who is an accomplished fighter. Did compete in the UFC, Bellator, ONE FC, a couple different organizations. So big move on Jake Paul's part. You gotta give him props for that.
for sure. This is really good for Jake Paul because if he wins, he's beaten a fighter. I'm not too familiar with his track record, but I don't think he's fought an actual fighter, right? He fought like KSI. He fought, so he's a gamer, I'm
Yeah, man.
thinking, and the other dude was an NBA player. So he's gonna
So
fight
he
an
knocked out
actual fighter.
exactly. I mean, he fought KSI. I think that's his name. Another YouTube guy from like England or something. And then he goes on and fights Nate Robinson, who's a retired basketball player, but you see Nate Robinson get in there, and you can tell the guy's not he's not a fighter. That's not what he does. There was a lot of rookie mistakes he made in his part. There's a big size advantage, like disadvantage on his end. But now Jake Paul actually gets someone who's recognized for fighting. So, but at the same time, he gets the perfect opponent. So it's interesting, man. It's interesting because I legitimately think Jake Paul has a shot. I don't see him. I see this being more favorable for Jake Paul than it is for Ben Askren at this
I
point.
agree. I agree. I think it's funny that you said, yeah, Ben Askren's weakest point is a stand up. And yeah, what yeah, I don't know. If Jake Paul wins, do you think he gains the respect from the fight community? I mean, can he legit call himself a fighter now, or what do you think?
So, so here's the thing, man. In my opinion, if you get a win against any guy who's competed at the highest level, which is the UFC, Bellator, like those companies, you got to put some respect on that name. I mean, as much as I don't like Jake Paul personally, he's beaten an accomplished fighter and one that's held championships in various organizations. He competed in the top five at the UFC at the time against Jorge Masvidal. Even though granted he lost, it was still a pretty good competition. I mean, it was a big fight. You have to put some respect on his name. I mean, but at the same time, you got to take that with the caveat, right? Like it's Ben Askren. It's not
In a
Jorge Masvidal. It's
boxing,
not Nate Diaz. It's
yeah,
exactly. It's like
it's a
inferior.
boxing match. If this was MMA, like you said, yeah, Askren would just eat him up.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. How do you see this fight going? Because I feel like it's interesting. Because from my viewpoint, I just think it's such a weird concept. But how do you see this in your mind? How do you see this playing out?
yeah, there's two things going through my mind is the actual outcome and the idea that this thing was even put together. So the actual outcome, I do think Jake Paul stands a really good shot at beating Ben Askren.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, but at the same time, Ben could, I don't know, he can really give him the hands, and he can win this one. I don't know. And if he does win, is that really a win for Ben? Not really. I think the reason why Ben is doing this is for money, 100%
Well,
purely.
100%. Check this out. Even if Ben Askren gets knocked out, if he loses respect to the MMA community, it's still a W because at the end of the day, he's taking home the cash.
So
He's gonna make money off this fight.
so that's the thing. Like, would you do that? I mean, well, yeah, right. I mean, you're making the money. He said they offered him a boatload of money. So, but at the same time, he's like, he's risking his legacy, or the legacy that he has. Because Ben Askren is, I mean, he has a legacy. He's really accomplished. So if he gets knocked out by Jake Paul, this might just like ruin almost everything for him. Don't you think? Or
So
not really, not that big of a deal.
no, I'm glad you brought that up because okay, so if you follow Ben Askren's career, he goes from one FC in Asia, becomes a champion, and that's not a joke. Like that organization's legit. They have some legit talent out there. Some UFC guys have transitioned there. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson fights out there. And he's a champ. He wins a belt there. Goes to Bellator, wins a belt. Bellator you can compare to like a B League of the UFC. It's not necessarily like it's the second best organization for fighting like with like PFL, those other organizations like that. Wins a championship there. And then he transitions over to the UFC. First fight with Robbie Lawler kind of gets beat up a little bit, but I mean, hey, a W is a W, right? He pulled off the win. And then he gets absolutely demolished by Jorge Masvidal. And then he comes back with against Damian Maia and doesn't look really good, retires. So look, he is accomplished, but you take all those things into one. I mean, the main element that made him become what he was and get him to where he got was the wrestling. And that's not going to be a factor at all in this fight.
Yeah.
And I have something interesting here that I just got that I wanted to pull up and kind of bring up.
Okay.
They just released the fight purse, right, for the previous UFC. And one of the things I noticed here, Michael Chandler, he made $253,000 for that last fight. He made his previous fight right now against Dan Hooker. I can't imagine Ben Askren was making that like over 100 something.
No.
I imagine he's probably making 100,000, maybe 150 tops. Jake Paul, his offer had to be enticing enough for him to take this fight, and I'm assuming he made probably in the millions for this, for sure, or close to it.
Yeah, that was my next question. So how much do you think he made? And depending on how much he made, is it worth ruining his legacy? I mean, if it's in the millions, I guess, then who cares? He gets knocked out. Who cares what people think about him? He goes home. He has millions, takes care of his family. Then I guess I can understand, but he better not lose, man. It would be so embarrassing, honestly. And
I think no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Man, I just think it's an embarrassment if he loses to the MMA community. Like you bring one of your guys out there and he gets knocked out by a YouTube kid talking shit, and it's wild, man. It definitely is. I can't imagine I'm happy about that.
I know, man. I hate it because then Jake Paul is just gonna continue to,
and it's gonna skyrocket.
It's gonna get worse. It's okay, bro. The higher they rise, the harder they fall. He'll fall at some point. You know what I mean?
But here's the thing with Jake Paul, man. I mean, as much as I'm hating on him right now, I've seen some of his videos on Instagram and YouTube. He's not a bad boxer. I mean, the guy has some combos. He's legit. He's an athlete. By the way he's built, you can tell he's not a joke. You know what I'm saying? As much as like we're talking shit about him, like he's an accomplished athlete. Like
that's why it's scary for Askren. That's why it's scary for Askren.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. But going on your point, man, Askren has held several different titles in different organizations, competed at the Olympic level, NCAA champ here in college. I mean, the guy's kind of done it at every level he's been in, besides the UFC. But I mean, a loss to Jake Paul is gonna hurt definitely gonna hurt his legacy a little bit, but it's definitely not gonna hurt his pockets. And at the end of the day,
I guess
you gotta provide for your family.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, I guess. And that, like I said, the other thing is just the fact that this is even a fight kind of upsets me a little bit. I feel like it's anyone can fight anyone now. It's I don't know, man. I have mixed feelings about it. And you know what? Ariel Helwani said something that I felt like was insulting, but then once I figured out he was making a lot of money, I understood why he said this. But he told Askren, he interviewed him, and he said, the first thing he said was, "Hey, Askren, welcome to the interview. Congrats on getting the Jake Paul fight." I was like, "Congrats? What do you mean, congrats? You're acting like he's fighting GSP or something." That's like insulting to tell Ben Askren, congrats on booking a fight with this like YouTube punk kid. But then I know what Ariel was saying. It's like, hey, congrats, you're about to make a ton of money.
Exactly. Do you
That's
remember
what it was.
the interview? Do you remember the interview with Connor? Or not the interview, but the press conference. Connor's like, "You signed to fight me. It's red panty night." That's what it is. Ben Askren just signed that
For
deal.
Red
He
Panty
just
Night.
signed the fight. He got it. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
proud of him for getting it, man. I mean, there were some big names. I mean, like, I don't think Dylan Dennis is all that either, but that would have been an interesting fight, right? Like,
That would have
Ben
been
Askren
evenly
won.
matched. That would have been
Yeah,
evenly matched. I think this is, as far as boxing goes, I think it's evenly matched. Yeah, we'll just see, man. Do you even know when the fight is? I don't even know when it is.
I want to say it's in April, but I may be wrong on that. It's definitely in a couple months. I know Ben
It,
Askren has some time to train.
it's gonna be on DAZN,
It's gonna be
most
what?
likely. It'll be on DAZN, most likely.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. I have a question for you, though, Rich.
Yeah.
What do you feel like this does for boxing, though? Do you think this kind of puts like an
Oh
asterisk on
yeah.
boxing? Like now it's kind of like a sideshow where anyone can kind of go call out anybody, or do you feel like it's a good thing for boxing? Boxing was kind of like the numbers were dropping a little bit when the UFC came in. How do you feel like that's going to be in their advantage?
That's a good question, man. That's a really good question. Ooh, I'm gonna have to come back on that one because I feel like it can go either way. I think it gets more people interested in the sport. More people are
Yeah,
probably watching. But no, in my opinion, as of right now, I think it tarnishes it. I feel like boxing is a joke. Like you can't just see anyone. Well, I gotta be careful because they did let CM Punk come and fight, but like other than that, you can't just like really stroll into the UFC and fight in an expedition match like that. Then again, they're not representing a boxing organization, right? It's not like
yeah.
a IB. Okay, so I don't
No,
know,
it's
man. It's just like a
everyone by
boxing.
it.
Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
I
But
don't
it,
know.
but I mean, it is sanctioned through like a boxing committee to get the fight, going with legit referees, legit
Yeah.
uh, um, judges on the scorecard, things of that
Okay.
nature.
So let me tell you this. This is one outtake I have on it. What it shows is that no one is doing this with MMA, right? Not even UFC. Don't worry about UFC, but no one is. Jake Paul isn't doing this with the MMA platform. Let's see if this makes sense. He wants to pick up boxing, right? So he can box. That's cool. He can box the NBA player, the gamer, whatever. Notice how no one is doing that with MMA. Notice how he's not doing that with MMA. What does that show? That kind of like exposes boxing versus MMA. That it's easier to step in the ring and just mess around and just box versus stepping in the ring and having the NBA player and Jake Paul fighting. I mean, does that make sense? What I'm saying?
No,
So
it makes absolute sense,
it
and
ex-
I
it
kind of I understand
exposes
what
it.
you're saying.
That is harder. Like
I understand
who
what
in the
you're
right
saying.
mind would get into an MMA match like that? Jake Paul wouldn't. As tough as he is, he wouldn't, bro, because he knows that's dangerous. I mean, boxing is
Yeah,
dangerous too, but
MMA, like you say, it's a completely different world. There's a mixture of different martial arts that are involved with it. Um, there's a lot of different things you can throw, elbows, knees that you can't do in boxing, so it definitely makes it a different element. But I don't think it would get sanctioned in an MMA fight. You know what I'm saying? There's too
yeah,
much liability that could happen. I don't really think there's a commissioning body that would even take that on.
because they know
But
it's ridiculous.
yeah, but as far as is it bad for boxing? In my opinion, I do think it's bad for boxing. But in a way, I think fans have to understand that these guys, it may have the name pro on their title, but they're not like legit like boxing athletes. It's just more of a sideshow to get people. It does bring people in. It does bring a fresh audience to kind of see what the sport is about, and hopefully that does bring them into like the further levels. But you got to take everything with the caveat. Jake Paul did choose his opponents. I mean,
Yeah.
KSI is a YouTube star. Nate Robinson's a retired basketball player who's like 5 foot like 7. Um, he is, man. I'm sorry. He had no business being in there. You see the way he fell?
Yeah,
Bro, he was
bro.
throwing punches
It
like
didn't look
like
natural to him.
my middle school, man.
Dude,
Rich,
you've
I know you
seen
went to
you've
high.
seen worse fights in the parking lot of our high school. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man. And it's like it's
Oh, better
crazy to
fights,
see
I
that.
mean.
And now he's going to like against again a legit like MMA guy, but taking away the guy's best quality. Like there's this video on YouTube right now. It's just please someone type it in. Like if you're watching this video, Ben Askren, boxing highlights. It is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. This man is throwing spinning punches. Just
Oh
please watch it,
man.
and you'll understand my frustration with this. It's insane, but I don't know, man. I agree with you to a certain extent. It does put an asterisk on boxing, but in a way, it does bring new fan base in there. So hopefully
It's
it can
weird,
revive
right?
this.
It's kind of hard to have like a clear cut answer of what it does as of right now. But all I know is that this would not happen in MMA, and I think this, in my opinion, this makes
Yeah,
MMA as a sport look more legit because it's not just something you can just step in and do, man. It's dangerous. Like it's
and I
like you
agree
said,
with you.
knees, elbows. We're forgetting probably one of the most deadliest parts is the chokes. If you don't know what you're doing in there with someone that knows what they're doing in there, like you just
Absolutely, and I agree with you. And the
critical
interesting thing
damage.
is, you did bring up a point that like the UFC did let some guys in that were questionable, like CM Punk, Brock
Yeah,
Lesnar. But at the same time, like Brock Lesnar was an NCAA champ. He's an accomplished athlete. Like the things that man's doing at his size is ridiculous. CM Punk, that's a little bit different, but CM Punk actually trained before his fight. He had a good couple months to train, and he tried giving it a shot. He saw it wasn't for him. He got out of there. Um, the UFC doesn't really necessarily do that as far as boxing with like these YouTube fights.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
It,
it wasn't much of an expedition. It was more like this dude wanted to try UFC or MMA, put him in the UFC. Said, "Cool, we're gonna put you in with an actual MMA fighter. We're not just gonna take
exactly.
two people like CM Punk. Like, what if they brought like CM Punk and like Jimmy Kimmel or something? Like two
Yeah,
random people had them fight.
that'd
Like
be
you would never see that in MMA.
no
You never
ever
see that.
ever
Or like
never
what if
ever.
like Joe Rogan fighting, like Brian Callen or something. Yeah, they're both enthusiasts, and I'm sure Joe can knock someone out and choke someone out, but you just wouldn't see it because
Absolutely,
it just they wouldn't, like you said, they wouldn't sanction that.
they wouldn't at all. It's
Or actually, I
crazy
don't
though. I
know. Do
mean,
you think? I'm sorry. Sidebar. Do you think Joe? No, no, right? Joe would never do that. He knows it's too dangerous.
no, I think Joe's realistic, man. I mean, like Joe's in his like I want to say he's in his 40s, 50s. Like he knows he can fuck some shit up. At the same time, like he's just like,
Why?
hey, I'm an enthusiast of the sport. Exactly what you said. Like I love the sport
Yeah.
so much, and I love covering it, and I love training. But it's just it's different. It's different levels. Like he's not training to fight. He's just training because he loves like the aspect of martial arts.
I would like to see him do that. The underground though, the submission underground. That would be cool. So that is
That
kind
would
of
be cool.
like that's kind of like because you see like Bones Jones with who was it? Who Dan Henderson, right? That fight never happened in MMA, but they did it in submission. So that's cool because it's submitting two people that know how to do jujitsu. Like that would be cool.
Exactly.
I would like to see Joe do that with someone, or like seeing Eddie
Right.
Bravo do
Exactly.
that again, seeing him come out of
And shout out to
retirement.
Uncle Chael for shout out to Uncle Chael for hosting the Submission Underground because that's a great event. They
That's a
do
cool
bring a lot
show,
of
man.
like fresh faces. Yeah, even guys that don't necessarily even fight, but that are just like BJJ black belt champions. Guys from like different levels. Like I've seen some crazy matches on there that are absolutely insane. Some submissions that you don't even like necessarily see, but at these high levels, you know.
Yeah,
I
but
agree. Maybe they
still,
can
once again,
but
still, anyone that goes in there, they know what they're doing. You don't just see like celebrities. But
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
No, it's
I don't.
accomplished guys.
Yeah,
Like you said, man, like there's levels to things. Like there's some guys that like fight, but they're just mainly BJJ guys, right? But like they don't fight in the UFC because they know it's like it's a different type of fighting, you know.
yeah,
And I think it's great, man. I think Submission Underground's a really cool one that I personally enjoy a lot. And I spend a lot of time watching.
yeah. Same here. Yeah, man. Well,
But
we'll see what happens.
on a side note, Richard,
Yeah,
his brother's also fighting. Logan
yeah. Who's
Paul is
he?
gonna fight the greatest boxer of all time, arguably
That's
50 and
happening.
0, Floyd Mayweather. Oh, it's happening. It's already
What?
confirmed.
Where have I been?
And that's another crazy thing. Like, think about this. Logan didn't even win a boxing like fight yet. He's 0-1, and he lost the YouTuber. He's gonna fight the greatest boxer of all time, undefeated.
Wait,
Floyd
so
Mayweather
he lost. Oh, he lost the KSI,
lost to KSI.
and
Yeah,
now he's gonna fight Floyd Money Mayweather.
he's gonna fight Floyd Money Mayweather.
Bro, that see
That's ridiculous.
how does this happen? Like I don't understand. That doesn't make any sense to me. And
It
how much
doesn't.
money is Floyd making? He must be making a lot for that.
Oh my god, he's
That's
gonna make so
crazy
much.
how you can. How does that make Logan and Jake feel that they're Conor McGregor's in that sense, where fighting them makes the other person rich? That's crazy. Like, how did they get to that point?
I don't know, man. And
I wonder what their
this is a
net
little.
worth
This is a
is.
little. I'm gonna take a little dig at Floyd real quick. Floyd Loki, his last 3 fights have been very suspect, right? He
Mm-hmm.
takes on Connor, which that was a cool fight because Connor's an accomplished MMA fighter, right? Comes to the boxing arena. I mean, I knew Connor didn't really have a chance, but that was a cool like fight to kind of witness.
Yeah,
And then he fights. I think his name is Teshin. Have you heard this kid?
yeah. I saw the fight. It
Yeah, he
was
fights Teshin in like some Japanese organization way out of fucking China somewhere.
Risen, I think. No,
Yeah, Risen, that's what it was.
yeah.
And it's crazy because the kid's like 125 pounds. He's a stud, but gets knocked out in like 20, like 30, 40 seconds, something ridiculous.
In a
And
weird
now he's gonna
way
fight
too.
Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
Now he's gonna fight Floyd, and then Floyd Mayweather now is fighting Logan Paul. Like his last 3 fights have been just kind of like I'm gonna
But
chase
what
the
is this guy
paper.
doing? Yeah, that's what he's doing. And I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like Floyd can do whatever he wants. He's done so much. And we all know that he's not really fighting competitively. He's just trying to make the money now. I feel like he can do that, you know.
He's just being a sideshow. Exactly, but he's earned his marks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's earned his right to do that because he's fought in the game. But I mean, boxing is becoming kind of this thing where like those fights are kind of like the next like wave of like what to watch. It's not necessarily even like the Canelo Alvarez's, the Ryan Garcias who are coming up. It's Logan Paul, Jake Paul, a retired Floyd Mayweather fighting someone that's calling them out.
Isn't that
It's
crazy
a
how
new
that is
wave
more
of
trending than
going
those
on.
dudes that deserve it?
We
You know
live
what I
in
mean?
a new time now, and it's wild.
It's weird, bro. Do you think it almost makes it hard to call these combat sports like actual, like take them seriously as actual sports? That they're more
It's
like
not even that.
it's like it's
I feel like
celebrity. Do you remember that show, Celebrity? Show? No, was it Celebrity? It was like a
I remember what you're talking about.
it was a show on MTV, right?
Yeah, they
It
used
was
to
like
like
the
fight, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was like
That's what it is at
Celebrity
this point, man.
SmackDown or something. Oh, Celebrity
Yeah,
Deathmatch.
that's what it was. Death match. That's
That's
what it
what
is
this
at this
reminds me of. Yeah.
But it's interesting to see how this progresses. I'm legitimately curious to see the Ben Askren Jake Paul fight though. I think that's gonna be it's gonna be entertaining. I mean, I'm not looking at it from a competitive standpoint. I'm looking at it more for like, wow, I just want to see what's gonna happen here, you know. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna
We'll
be
see,
interesting,
man.
man.
So I'm guessing you're gonna tune in.
I'm definitely gonna tune in. I'm not buying it. I'm gonna legally
Yeah.
stream it, but don't tell anybody.
Don't say that, bro. Dana's gonna next thing you
Yeah,
know, Dana's
right.
gonna come to your door, bust through with SWAT. No, bro, I won't
For
even
real.
watch it. No, I won't even do it. I would just kind of wait for I guess the results, and I would just like stand by like some sort of
Yeah,
broadcasting. And
I'll get you a little clip, a little quick clip of the highlights there.
yeah, man, this is a weird fight, but nonetheless gonna be interesting. And I'm rooting for you. I feel like really quick, I gotta close out with this because no disrespect to Askren, but I feel like a lot of people that don't like him will finally root for him. Finally, like he's
Oh,
finally on the
absolutely,
favoriting side.
absolutely. He's gonna
Finally,
have like
people want him to
90%
win.
of all people who are not 13-year-old like prepubescent like little boys that cheer for Jake Paul are gonna be cheering for him. So hopefully that little curly haired fuck can do something interesting. Hopefully he can let
Oh
those
man,
hands go.
I'll be rooting for him, bro. I want Ashkin to
Yeah,
win.
well,
After that, I can care less, but he's got to win this one, man. I might even put money
the
on it, seeing what the odds are. I bet you he's gonna be an underdog.
he might be honestly. He might be if you watch the highlights. Watch his boxing highlights. Go make Jake Paul a favorite, and then hopefully Richard can make some money if he bets on it.